Hey guys, welcome to Blockchain Reaction, where we look at different companies that run on the blockchain.
Please remember to like and subscribe and follow us if you like our content. We're going to look at followmyvote.com, which is a voting platform that runs off of the blockchain.
Yeah.
From being married to somebody from Africa, that there's so much corruption in other countries, and I've got a good friend from Venezuela, which is, of course, not doing so well right now. And this would keep governments transparent. So elections are pretty rigged in these countries. They record who's voting for who, and you can become a target if you're not voting for the incumbent.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. Like, we have it so good over here, we don't even realize it.
Yeah. And also, of course, they're counting the votes, and so you write down a name on a piece of paper and put it in, but of course there's no way to track that that's actually being counted accurately.
Yeah. But I had a quote from Stalin that said something like, it's not about the people who vote, it's the people who count the votes, or something like that. And that was kind of their get 'em. This is why you need something like this. I wish you could find it. It was really actually funny because I saw it and I was like, why did they have a quote from Stalin? That's kind of weird. And I read the quote and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Well, the benefits of that is fully transparent. Like we were just talking about earlier, where in some countries you cast your vote and that's the end of it, and you have no idea what happens to the vote, where it goes, or even if it's even counted. If you were to vote on the blockchain, that's a way you could actually go for everybody to go and just look at where their vote's actually being tallied and make sure it is actually being tallied.
Yeah. So that's a huge one. Another one was being able to change your vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's a really good idea because there's a lot of times I'd like to vote for a third-party candidate, and part of their reasoning was that you could vote for a third-party candidate without feeling like your vote's being wasted. Because if you see that they're clearly not going to win before an election ends, then you can go in and change your vote to one of the major party candidates.
Yeah. I do like the idea of having a third party. I think that's something that definitely needs to happen, especially in America. But I don't know. I feel like changing your vote is not the best thing because, like, you don't know the ramifications of that. Like, what happens if people start to, if they get people to vote a certain way and at the last minute they switch their vote? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much of an influence that would have on actual elections. It's something that could cause a major issue without people even knowing it.
I think there would definitely be, that would change a lot of things. So another thing that I think would be a benefit of this, but would be affected, is trying to predict who's going to win an election.
Yeah.
Since the votes are stored on the blockchain, I think you could watch the election live, basically, as the votes are coming in, just by watching the blockchain data. And I'm sure people would probably make nice UI applications to show who's voting how. But it would make it a lot harder to predict. Like, the Republicans are up by 20 points, and then all of a sudden that's just like that, it switches to the Democrats or something, and because everyone just goes in and changes their votes. It's like the day before the election ends.
Yeah. I feel like that could cause some issues. But I like the idea of trying to create a third party.
Yeah. I don't really... I mean, I don't know if we should be talking about politics much, but the Republicans and the Democrats both, I'm kind of tired of.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking of that's good use of this, which is why it's good for the blockchain, is that you think about after an election, like how many times have they wanted to do a recount, or if they say, oh, we have to count these votes in this section, or all these other things. Like you said, it'd almost be immediate, I think. Like once people would vote immediately, they'd be on the blockchain no matter where you are. You could be in a big city or out in the middle of nowhere. And you'd be able to automatically cast the vote, and everybody could see it.
Yeah, and so distance would become less of an issue, as you said. Like even if you're like way out in the country somewhere,
Yeah,
or it's very inconvenient for you to try to travel to some particular location to cast a vote,
yeah,
you could just do it from a computer or even a phone, because they were saying that you could even run this from your phone.
yeah. But it was like currently where my mom and dad live is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and they have to do mail-in ballots.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so they get it like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, and then they vote, and then they mail it in.
Yes, that's really inconvenient.
They don't actually go to the voting box. So, I mean, it would just really be beneficial for everybody, I feel. Unless if you don't have internet, then that's an issue.
Yeah. But that's pretty few people, it seems like, now.
Yeah.
Huh,
In the
that's
United States, at least.
that is a sort of interesting point, though. Although I imagine they could still have voting booths. It's just you go and you log in
True.
to
Yeah.
the blockchain there at the location.
Yeah.
Um,
Wouldn't that be something? You walk up and there's just a screen there. You just log into a site. That's how you.
I could see it happening for sure.
Yeah.
It seems so outdated to like go in and pull a lever or something to.
Yeah, doesn't it? It seems so weird.
Well, I guess one other benefit is standardizing how everybody votes.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's done on a state-by-state basis, and depending on what state you live in, it's, you might be pulling a lever, or you might be writing it in, or and then there might be different restrictions on who can vote or how you can vote, like which identification you need to show.
Yeah.
Um,
And so if you have one standard of voting for all the United States.
yeah, it makes it more fair in a sense.
Yeah.
And then it seems like Florida's always having issues. I don't know what's the deal with Florida, but they're always having to recount.
Because it's Florida. I feel like, yeah. The other thing that they had that was the benefits of using their website was they had focus on issues versus political parties, which we kind of talked about. But what they wanted to do is have basically the candidate's profile right there when you vote. So as you're voting, you can see everything that they stand for, all the information for each candidate, and then vote supporting those issues and not so much the party.
That's a good point. And whenever I voted at a voting booth, it's just standing in a line. And so when you're in there voting, you also wouldn't feel very comfortable, at least I wouldn't, reading a whole bunch of information while I'm standing there. But if you're voting from your house and you have time to sit and read.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, honestly, I feel that the experience that I've had voting with the mail-in ballots is a lot like this, except it's old technology, if you want to say that. Because what we do is, like I said, we get the packet and they actually send you a voting guide. So you have all the information for each candidate and like all the issues. You have a whole pamphlet, sometimes a whole little booklet there that you can read as you vote. And so I've never actually voted in a voting booth. All right, so what's the actual process to vote on this platform?
So I found a video that they had posted that shows the process, and I'll just show a few shots from their video, which I need to remember to link to later. So hopefully I won't forget to do that. And it looks like you show your ID in a photo just by taking photos online. So let's see if we skip ahead a little bit. This guy takes a photo of his face to show who he is. And then you take a photo of the front side and the back side of your ID card. So looks like he's using a driver's license in this case. And that's how they're able to verify your identity. And it's similar to going to a voting booth, because all the person there is going to do to identify you is look at your ID and, they see your face, but that's all that it is.
So it's basically the same thing as going to a voting booth, except you're doing it with your computer or phone.
Yeah, the question I have is who actually goes there and looks at these?
Yeah, how is that secure?
Yeah, you could take a photo of, like, at least at the voting booth, somebody is standing there
Mm-hmm.
and sees it. With this, how do you know you're not just taking a picture of a dog and, you know, a grocery store card or something? Yeah.
Yeah. I bet you they have some type of algorithm that matches, like they pull up your ID card and then match it to your photo, something like that.
Right, and admittedly, I've looked through a lot of material and watched this 5-minute, 6-minute video over a week ago, so they might talk about it in the video. I just don't remember
Yeah.
what all was in the video.
I'm pretty sure that the full process of voting is all one process. So you can't like log in, take your photo with an ID card, log out, log back in to vote, right?
Right, yeah, I think you have to do this all in one shot. So you do the ID and then vote right away. But I think it's also linked to your public key and your private key, account. So why was I saying public key? It's of course linked to your private key.
Yeah.
And so I think you can just go in after this and change with the private key.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure though. I don't know if you have to verify your ID every time, which might make sense actually, so that way someone doesn't try to vote for you.
Yeah, I bet you it's every time.
So what problems do you think they're going to face trying to do it this way?
There's really about 3 that I can think of. One is with this process right here of the identification. I mean, how safe is that? How secure is that? I mean, could somebody, like you see the photo of the person, you see their ID card, if you're looking at your screen right now, like how do you know there's not somebody on the other side of the screen forcing them to vote a certain way? But that's kind of, any type of voting system is going to have those issues. I mean, it could be like that for just about anything where you're being forced to vote a certain way, but that's just worst case scenario, I guess. Another issue that I could think of as well is, it might be hard to get this on a public scale. Like, my parents are even afraid to do their banking online. So why would they vote online?
Yeah, that's a major one, I think, is adoption. I mean, if a country is corrupt, of course, it would be great if they would adopt this. So now they have to be transparent about who's voting for who, but obviously they're not going to want to do that.
So I think that's going to be a hard one. And then the last one, this was actually a question on their website that somebody was Mark from Canada asked. He said, there are often many uncast ballots in an election. What prevents a bad actor from voting on behalf of the people who are not going to vote for themselves? In other words, ballot stuffing. That is, if a bad actor were able to get a list of voter IDs, could they determine which ones were used and unused votes for the voters? Or similarly, could a bad actor register dogs or dead people and then vote on their behalf?
That is a good point, but I see it with this process. That would be pretty difficult to do because you'd have to have photos of people and then have those people holding up an ID.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to my first point is, I mean, you don't know how the people are actually going to be using this or how they might, get around the works. But it's going to be like that with any voting method, really. I feel like this is going to be a better solution than, like I said, the mail-in ballot. How do you know that somebody just doesn't take it from somebody and fill out their vote? This is actually a better alternative to that.
Yeah.
So overall, I feel like this actually it takes a step in the right direction of solving all those issues. What was your issues with it?
Well, one that I saw pointed out in a paper, which is a good point, is a benefit of this is also kind of a negative in that it's going to standardize the way that everybody votes. So right now, every state has their own system, which maybe causes things to be unequal on a state-by-state basis and makes it difficult if you move from one state to another to figure out how you vote again and all that. But it also makes it harder to rig an election on a national scale because you have to figure out the system in every single state or at least a good number of states if you're going to try to rig the election.
Mhm.
But with this, since everyone's voting the same way, if you figure out one way to hack the system, you could hack the whole thing.
It's putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So how well do you think this uses the blockchain?
I think this is a great use of blockchain. I know there's going to be some difficulty getting other countries, even, well, our country, anybody to adopt it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be so good just for humans, basically, in general. Like once countries, if we could convince people to start adopting it, I mean, it seems like it could be world changing. And yeah, it's just I think it's a fantastic potential use of the blockchain. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if it does take off, and hopefully it does, it could definitely change voting all over the world, like you said. The other thing is that, I mean, we've only been talking about like political elections. This isn't just limited to political elections. Like, you could use it for TV voting. I think they have like The Voice on there. You could vote that way on The Voice. It could go as far as to like something as menial as like at your work. Maybe you have to do something like that. You could create an account and you could vote that way. I mean, there's so many different avenues that this could go to. It's not just politics.
That's a great point, actually. I forgot that I did see them mention that somewhere, even though they usually emphasize politics. But like things with The Voice, you have to wait a whole day to get any kind of feedback usually, right? To see like who's going to win. Whereas this would be like live, so it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think if they really wanted to scale this, that would be the way to do it, is start with those types of outlets, like The Voice, or, I don't know, stuff that's really public, but it's not as important as a political election. And that way they can get their vote, their bugs figured out, and that kind of gets more of a exposure, so they can actually go to a bigger scale. So what is your rating on this company?
I'm gonna go with an 8 for now. I mean, I would give it almost a 10 out of 10 if I didn't see the really big issue I see is getting people to adopt the technology, both from a government perspective, because I'm sure there are things every government in the world doesn't want to be transparent about, and then also, as you were saying, like with your parents, not trusting online banking and stuff, and there's going to be a large population that are going to be, opposed to trusting the technology to count all the votes and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be hard to convince everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I'm actually going to give it a 9. I think that if this does take off, which hopefully it does, it could really change a lot of things for the better. But I do agree that, I mean, the only reason why I don't give it a 10 is because I don't think it will take off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Hopefully it does, like I said. But
I mean,
in the future, when people get more used to all this type of technology and the changes that are occurring and being comfortable with online activity, it'll take off. But I don't know if this company specifically will. I do think eventually online voting will take off, but I don't know if it'll be this company.
I see. Well, can you imagine if something, either this company or something like this, took off in like Africa and South America and Russia? I mean, I think it would just make such a huge difference for all the people that live there. I mean, this is...
any country that uses voting, any democratic country, it's going to hugely change everything for them.
Yeah, and those countries are so corrupt. I mean, your votes don't even matter. People don't vote because your votes aren't going to be counted for anything. Even if another candidate wins, and it's obvious that they won too, it's like, they don't they don't actually follow through with it or anything. Yeah, it's like, okay.
All they have to do is let you vote to say that they're being democratic, and that's it.
So that was Follow My Vote, a voting blockchain application. Both Walker and I think this is a great application, so go check it out, please. And please like and subscribe and follow our channel if you're enjoying this content. Thanks.
Thanks.